I'm standing in a Greyhound station bathroom, staring at my reflection in a cracked mirror. My suitcase is outside by the bench where my son left me 3 hours ago. He said he was going to get gas. Said he'd be back in 20 minutes. That was at 10:47 this morning. It's now 1:52 in the afternoon. And I know he's not coming back. I know because before he drove away, he looked at me through the rearview mirror with eyes that said everything his mouth wanted. Relief. That's what I saw. Relief that he was finally getting rid of me. My name is Margaret. I'm 72 years old. And my son just abandoned me at a bus station in Kamloops, British Columbia, with one suitcase and exactly $463 in my purse. If you're watching this, please hit that like button and subscribe because this story is about what happens when the person you raised decides you're too much trouble to keep around. And it's about the stranger who changed everything with 5 words. Come with me. He'll regret this. I raised Daniel by myself. His father left when Daniel was 2, disappeared somewhere into Alberta, and never sent a single child support check. I worked double shifts at a textile factory in Richmond for 23 years. Came home smelling like dye and chemicals, hands stained blue and red and purple. I missed his school plays because I was working. Missed his basketball games because I was working. But I never missed a single tuition payment. Never missed sending him money when he called from university saying he needed books or rent, or just a little extra to get by. I put him through for years at UBC. Paid every penny. He graduated with a business degree and 0 student debt, while I retired with a bad back and arthritis in both hands. 2 months ago, I had a fall. Nothing dramatic. Just slipped on some ice outside my apartment building in Richmond. Broke my hip. The surgery went fine, but recovery was slow. I couldn't live alone anymore. Not for a while anyway. The stairs to my second-floor apartment might as well have been Mount Everest. So, Daniel said I should come stay with him. He has a house in Kelowna. 4 bedrooms. His wife Jennifer, his 2 kids. Plenty of space, he said. You'll recover faster with family round, he said. It'll be good, Mom, he said. I sold most of my furniture. Put the rest in storage. Gave up my apartment because Daniel said there was no point paying rent when I'd be with them for at least 6 months, maybe longer. The doctor said full recovery could take 8 months to a year at my age. So I packed my life into 3 suitcases and moved to Kelowna. That was 7 weeks ago. And for 7 weeks, I watched my son's face get tighter and tighter every time he saw me. Watched Jennifer stop making eye contact. Heard them arguing in their bedroom at night about money, about space, about how long I was going to be there. I tried to stay out of the way. I really did. Kept to my room mostly. Helped with dishes when I could, even though standing that long made my hip ache. But it wasn't enough. Nothing was enough. 3 days ago, Daniel sat me down at the kitchen table. Jennifer was there too, arms crossed, looking at the wall instead of at me. Daniel said they'd been thinking, and maybe it would be better if I went to stay with his Aunt Linda in Calgary. Linda is my younger sister. We haven't spoken in 6 years. Not since she said some things at my retirement party that I'll never forgive. But Daniel said he'd already called her, and she'd agreed to take me in. Just temporary, he said. Just until you're fully recovered, he said. I asked him why. Why couldn't I stay with him? And he looked at Jennifer, and Jennifer looked at her hands. And then he said the words that broke something inside me that I don't think will ever heal. He said, Mom, it's just too much. You're just too much. This morning, he loaded my suitcase into his car. Just one suitcase. He said we had to travel light, that we'd ship the rest later. I knew that was a lie, but I didn't argue. We drove for 2 hours in almost complete silence. I watched the highway signs pass by. Margaret, then the turnoff for Kamloops. And then he pulled into this Greyhound station and said he needed gas. That the tank was almost empty. That he'd be right back. He helped me out of the car. Set my suitcase on the bench outside the station doors. And then he got back in the car, and I watched him drive away. I watched him check his rearview mirror once, just once. And then he turned left out of the parking lot, and he was gone. I stood there for maybe 20 minutes before I accepted it. Before I let myself know what I already knew. He wasn't coming back. He'd driven me to a bus station for hours from his house and 2 hours from my sister's house. And he'd just left me here. Like I was a piece of furniture he didn't want anymore. Like I was garbage. I went inside the station and asked about buses to Calgary. The man behind the counter said the next one didn't leave until 6:30 p.m. for 1.5 hours. I bought a ticket. It cost me $97. That left me with $366. I sat down on a bench, and I tried not to cry because crying in public at 72 feels like admitting you've lost, like admitting the world has beaten you, and I wasn't ready to admit that yet. That's when she appeared. A woman, maybe 45, 50 years old, black hair cut short, wearing jeans and a leather jacket that looked expensive. She sat down next to me even though there were plenty of empty benches. She didn't say anything at first, just sat there, and then she looked at me and said 4 words. "You've been abandoned, haven't you?" It wasn't a question. She said it like a fact, like she could see it written on my face. I didn't answer. I just looked at my hands, my old, wrinkled, useless hands, and she said, "I've been watching you for the past hour. Saw the car drop you off. Saw the way he looked at you before he drove away. Saw you standing there waiting for him to come back. And I know that look because I've seen it before. That's the look of someone who just realized their child doesn't want them anymore." I started crying then, right there on that bench. Not quiet crying, real crying. The kind where you can't catch your breath and your whole body shakes. And this stranger, this woman I never met, put her arm around my shoulders and let me cry into her expensive leather jacket. When I finally stopped, when I finally got myself together enough to speak, I told her everything. About Daniel, about the fall, about the 7 weeks in Kelowna, about this morning, about being left here with 1 suitcase and a bus ticket to a sister who hates me. And she listened to all of it without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "My name is Catherine Reeves. I'm a lawyer. I specialize in elder law and family cases. And what your son did to you isn't just cruel. It might be criminal." I looked at her, really looked at her. She had kind eyes, but there was something hard in them too. Something that said she'd seen bad things and hadn't looked away. She pulled out a business card and handed it to me. "Catherine Reeves," it said. "Elder law attorney, Vancouver office, a phone number, and a mail address." She said, "You have options, Margaret. You don't have to get on that bus. You don't have to go beg your sister to take you in. Come with me. Come to my office in Vancouver. Let me help you. And I promise you, your son will regret what he did today. Not because I'm going to punish him, but because he's going to understand exactly what he threw away. I should have been suspicious. I should have thought this was some kind of scam. Stranger offers help to vulnerable old woman at a bus station. It sounds like the setup to a crime story. But I looked at her, and I didn't see a predator. I saw someone who was angry. Angry on my behalf. Angry at Daniel. Angry at a world where children abandon their parents like broken appliances. And I was tired. So tired of being polite. So tired of making myself small. So tired of pretending I didn't deserve better. So I said yes. I said, okay, Catherine. Help me. Asterisk. She drove me to Vancouver that day. 3.5 hours in her car, a silver BMW that smelled like leather and expensive perfume. We stopped for lunch at a diner in Hope. She paid. We talked the whole drive. She told me about her practice, about cases she'd handled, about children who stole from their parents, who coerced them into signing over property, who abandoned them in care homes and never visited. She told me about a woman in her 80s whose son had taken power of attorney and emptied her bank accounts, about a man in his 90s who'd been locked in his own basement by his daughter while she sold off his belongings. She said elder abuse was the invisible epidemic, that it happened every day, that most victims were too ashamed to report it, too afraid of being alone, too conditioned to protect their children even when their children didn't protect them. And then she told me her own story. She said, "My mother died 5 years ago. Alzheimer's. My brother was supposed to be helping me take care of her. Instead, he was helping himself to her jewelry, her savings, her social security checks. By the time I found out, he'd taken almost $200,000. I sued him. I won. He went to prison for 18 months. And my mother never knew. She died thinking her son loved her. Sometimes I don't know if that makes it better or worse." She looked at me then, eyes hard. "I became a lawyer because of what my brother did. And I'm good at what I do. Margaret, I'm very good at making children face consequences." We arrived at her office in downtown Vancouver around 7 p.m. It was in a modern building, all glass and steel. Her office was on the 14th floor. Big windows overlooking the city. Bookshelves filled with law books. A desk that looked like it cost more than my entire apartment had. She made tea. We sat down, and she asked me questions, detailed questions, about my finances, about what I'd spent on Daniel over the years, about the apartment I'd given up, about the furniture I'd sold, about every penny I'd ever sent him for school, for rent, for his wedding, for his kids' birthdays. She took notes, lots of notes, and then she said, "Here's what we're going to do. First," she said, "you're going to stay with me. I have a guest room. It's yours for as long as you need it. Second, we're going to document everything, every text, message, every email, every phone call between you and Daniel, everything you spent on him, everything you sacrificed. Third, I'm going to send your son a letter, a very detailed legal letter explaining that what he did constitutes elder abandonment under British Columbia law, that it could be prosecuted as a criminal offense, that he has 72 hours to respond with a plan for your care or we'll be filing charges. And fourth, we're going to make sure you're never in this position again. We're going to get you set up properly. Benefits you're entitled to. Housing assistance. Everything." I stared at her. I said, "Why are you doing this? You don't know me." She smiled then. It wasn't a happy smile. She said, "Because your son thinks he can throw you away and face no consequences. Because he thinks you're powerless. Because men like him need to learn that actions have cost. And because I can. Because I have the resources and the knowledge and the anger to actually do something about it. So let me help you. Let me show your son what it means to abandon someone who gave up everything for you." That night, I slept in Catherine's guest room. It had a real bed with clean sheets that smelled like lavender, a private bathroom, a window that looked out over the city lights. I cried myself to sleep, but they were different tears, not grief tears, anger tears, because Catherine was right. Daniel thought I was powerless, thought he could just dump me at a bus station and drive away, and that would be the end of it. Thought I'd quietly get on a bus to Calgary and disappear into my sister's house and never cause any trouble. He thought wrong. The next morning, Catherine sent the letter. She showed it to me first. It was 3 pages long, very legal, very formal. It outlined exactly what Daniel had done. The legal term was elder abandonment. It explained that under Section 215 of the Canadian Criminal Code, failing to provide necessities of life to a person under your charge is a criminal offense, punishable by up to 2 years in prison. It detailed the money I'd spent on his education, the apartment I'd given up, the furniture I'd sold, the 7 weeks I'd spent in his house before he dumped me. It said Daniel had 72 hours to provide a written plan for my care, including suitable housing and financial support for my ongoing medical needs. If he failed to respond, she would file a police report and pursue criminal charges. She also mentioned she was prepared to file a civil suit for financial elder abuse, seeking reimbursement for the education costs and other support I'd provided over the years. She sent it by mail and registered mail. Then we waited. Daniel called for hours later. Catherine had given him her number. He was furious, yelling, saying this was ridiculous, that I was being dramatic, that he was going to come get me, that I was his mother, and I needed to stop making trouble. Catherine put him on speakerphone. Her voice was ice. She said, "Mr. Chen, I'm recording this call. Everything you say is being documented. You abandoned your mother at a bus station. You drove away and left her with 1 suitcase and less than $500. She has ongoing medical needs. She gave up her housing at your request. She is 72 years old, and you left her stranded for hours from your home. That is a crime. You have 70 hours left to respond appropriately. I suggest you use them wisely." He hung up, called back 10 minutes later. Calmer this time, said he wanted to talk to me. Catherine handed me the phone. His voice was different, uncertain. He said, "Mom, I don't understand what's happening. Why did you get a lawyer? Why are you doing this? I'm your son." And I said, "You're right, Daniel. You're my son. I raised you alone. I worked myself half to death to give you opportunities I never had. I paid for your education. I supported you through every struggle. And when I needed you, when I was hurt and vulnerable and scared, you drove me to a bus station and left me there like I was nothing, like I was garbage. So yes, I got a lawyer. Because apparently that's what it takes for you to treat me like a human being." He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do. You were supposed to stay for a few weeks, and it turned into months, and Jennifer was upset. And the kids were confused, and we were fighting all the time, and I panicked." I said, "You panicked? So you abandoned me, he said. I know. I know it was wrong. Please, Mom. Tell me what you want. Tell me how to fix this. And I looked at Catherine. She nodded. She'd coach me on this, I said. I want you to understand what you did. Really understand. And I want to make sure this never happens to me again. To any parent. Catherine will explain what needs to happen next. Catherine took the phone. She laid out the terms. First, Daniel would pay for secure housing for me. A proper apartment, accessible, safe, with a lease in my name only. He would cover the first year's rent and damage deposit. That came to roughly $22,000. Second, he would reimburse me for the furniture I'd sold when I gave up my apartment. $8,000. Third, he would contribute to a trust fund for my ongoing care. $50,000 to be managed by a third-party trustee, to ensure I had resources for medical needs, emergencies, anything I required. Total cost to Daniel, $80,000. She gave him 1 week to agree in writing. If he refused, she'd file criminal charges and pursue a civil suit for full reimbursement of his education cost, plus damages. She estimated that would be close to $200,000, and it would be public record, and it would destroy his reputation. He agreed. 3 days later, the money was in escrow. Catherine found me an apartment in Richmond, close to where I'd lived before. Ground floor, 2 bedrooms, accessible bathroom, beautiful. The lease was in my name. I moved in 2 weeks after Daniel left me at that bus station. Catherine helped me furnish it. We went shopping together, picked out a sofa, a bed, a kitchen table, everything I needed. She wouldn't let me pay, she said. Consider it an investment in justice. Margaret, besides, your son's money is paying for most of this. Might as well put it to good use. The trust fund was set up. $50,000 that I could draw on for medical expenses, home care, anything I needed. But it couldn't be touched by anyone else. Not Daniel. Not my sister. No one. It was mine. Protected. Catherine also helped me apply for benefits I didn't know I was entitled to. Disability support. Housing supplements. By the end of the month, I had stable income, stable housing, and money in the bank. For the first time in my entire life, I felt secure. Not dependent on anyone. Not vulnerable. Secure. Daniel called once after everything was finalized. Asked if he could come visit. I said no. He asked if I'd ever forgive him. I said I didn't know. Maybe someday. But not now. Not soon. He cried on the phone. Said he was ashamed. Said he'd been weak and scared and selfish. Said Jennifer had left him. Taken the kids. Filed for divorce. Said losing his mother and his wife in the same month had made him realize what mattered. I listened to all of it. And then I said, Daniel, I hope you learn from this. I hope you become a better person. But I don't owe you forgiveness. I don't owe you anything anymore. I spent 50 years owing you everything. I'm done. He said okay. Said he understood. Said he loved me. I hung up. That was for months ago. I'm sitting in my apartment now. My apartment. The one with my name on the lease. Sunlight coming through the windows. A cup of tea on the table next to me. My hip is healing well. I can walk without a cane now. Can go up and down stairs. I've joined a book club at the community center. Made some friends. One woman, Helen, is 83 and sharp as a knife. She told me her daughter tried to pull something similar 5 years ago. She fought back too. We laugh about it now. About being the difficult old women who refuse to disappear quietly. Astor's Catherine still checks on me. Calls every week. We've become friends. Real friends. She told me last month that she's taken on 6 more cases like mine in the past 4 months. Elder abandonment. Financial abuse. All of it. She said my case gave her the blueprint for how to fight back. She said, you started something. Margaret, you showed other people it's possible to stand up. That they don't have to accept being thrown away. I didn't know what to say to that. So I just said thank you. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for believing I deserve better. She said, everyone deserves better than what your son did to you. Everyone. Asterisk. I think about that day at the bus station a lot. About sitting on that bench with my 1 suitcase, watching the parking lot, waiting for a son who was never coming back. About how small I felt. How worthless. How invisible. And then I think about Catherine sitting down next to me. About her saying, you've been abandoned, haven't you? About her offering me a way forward when I couldn't see one myself. About her anger on my behalf when I was too tired to be angry for myself. I think about how one stranger's kindness changed everything. Not kindness, actually, justice. One stranger's sense of justice. I don't know if Daniel regrets what he did. I hope he does. I hope he lies awake at night thinking about driving away from that bus station. About the look on my face when I realized he wasn't coming back. I hope it haunts him. Because it should. What he did was unforgivable. Maybe someday I'll soften. Maybe someday I'll let him back into my life in some small way. But not today. Today I'm sitting in my apartment, drinking my tea, planning to meet Helen for lunch, and feeling something I haven't felt in years. I feel free. Free from the weight of being someone's burden. Free from the fear of being abandoned again. Free from the belief that I deserved what happened to me. If you're watching this, and you've been abandoned by someone you raised, someone you sacrificed for, someone who decided you were too much trouble to keep around, I want you to know something. You have options. You have rights. You don't have to accept being thrown away. Find a Catherine. Find someone who will fight for you. And if you can't find someone, fight for yourself. Document everything. Reach out to elder law attorneys. File police reports. Make noise. Be difficult. Be the inconvenient old person they hoped you'd never become. Because you deserve better. We all deserve better. And to everyone else watching, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Share this story. Let people know that elder abandonment is real, that it's happening every day, and that there are consequences for people who do it. Let's make sure no one else has to sit alone at a bus station, wondering if their child is ever coming back. Because that feeling, that moment when you realize you've been discarded like you never mattered, that's something no one should ever have to experience. No one. My name is Margaret Chen. I'm 72 years old. My son abandoned me at a bus station 4 months ago. And a stranger named Catherine Reeves said 5 words that changed my life. Come with me. He'll regret this. She was right. He does regret it. But more importantly, I don't regret fighting back. I don't regret standing up. I don't regret refusing to disappear. And neither should you. Asterisk.